South America is a land of breathtaking natural landscapes, diverse cultures, and a rich tapestry of history. The continent is a geographical marvel, from the towering Andes Mountains to the sprawling Amazon rainforest. But beyond its natural wonders lies a story of change, resilience, and progress. Today, we'll explore South America's modern journey, spanning over a century from 1900 to 2021. It is full of political revolutions, economic transformations, and cultural renaissances. Keep watching to dive into South America's modern journey. The early 1900s, a continent awakens. The 20th century was characterized by political instability and internal struggles in many South American countries. At the dawn of the century, most countries in South America were navigating their newfound independence from colonial powers. Although they are now free countries, the scars of colonization lingered in the form of economic dependence, poverty, and social inequality. Even though South America is rich in natural resources, including land and oil, much of the continent battled poverty throughout this century. Fortunately, the 20th century came with more than just challenges. Although it brought many challenges, South America was breaking away from the influence of its European colonizers and defining itself as an independent region. Newly free countries were trying to move past colonial legacies that had left deep economic and social divides. Nations like Argentina, Brazil, and Chile established themselves as sovereign entities, while other countries had republican governments modeled after those in the US or Europe. South America's economy was also newly independent and beginning to grow. It was heavily reliant on agriculture and raw material exports. For example, Argentina's Pampas region became a global source of grains and agricultural products like beef, while Brazil dominated coffee exports. Although abundant natural resources helped them succeed, their economic dependency on primary industries made them vulnerable to international market fluctuations. In the early 1900s, industrialization was still minimal and urban centers were beginning to grow. Buenos Aires and Rio de Janeiro were the largest cities, and they were both growing rapidly due to immigration and industrialization. In 1910, Buenos Aires became the first South American city to reach a population of 1 million. Despite the continent's growth, there were also many social inequalities. Levels of inequality surged in the wake of colonialism. Indigenous populations, the descendants of enslaved Africans brought by Europeans, and rural peasants faced systemic discrimination and limited opportunities. As exports boomed and the economy grew, the elite who owned the croplands and minerals benefited more than anyone else, increasing economic inequality. In response to the discrimination and inequality, early signs of nationalist movements emerged as workers and indigenous groups began advocating for rights, paving the way for later reforms. Inspired by more global socialist ideologies, early labor unions began to form. These organizations advocated for workers' rights, setting the stage for future reforms and resistance movements. The mid-20th century: war, revolution, and reform. The mid-20th century marked a period of profound transformation. The aftermath of World War II caused global upheaval, profoundly influencing South America. The continent became a battleground for competing political ideologies such as capitalism, socialism, and communism. While South America had mainly remained neutral during World War II, countries like Brazil contributed troops and resources to the Allied efforts. The war's aftermath spurred industrial growth in countries like Argentina and Chile as global demand for goods increased. It also saw an influx of Nazi fugitives seeking refuge, especially in countries like Peru and Chile. Their presence is still controversial, and they may have been a factor in the political instability of this era. Another more significant factor was the rise of populism. The first wave of Latin American populism began at the start of the Great Depression in 1929 and lasted until the 1960s. Politicians in various countries, like Juan Perón in Argentina and Getulio Vargas in Brazil, took power while emphasizing the importance of the people. They harnessed populist rhetoric, promising social and economic reforms, expanded labor rights, and nationalistic policies. While they garnered widespread support among the working class, their regimes often suppressed dissent and centralized power rather than giving it to the people. One example of suppression from this time was Operation Condor, which was coordinated by right-wing dictatorships across South America and financially backed by the US. It was a secret operation that sought to suppress dissent, often violently, such as through coups overthrowing political leaders. It is suspected to have been behind the 1973 coup in Chile, where General Augusto Pinochet overthrew Salvador Allende and established a military dictatorship famous for its human rights abuses. Brazil, Uruguay, and Paraguay also experienced similar repressive governments, which were often aided by Operation Condor missions. World War II wasn't the only conflict that shifted the political landscape of South America. The ideological battle of the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union also played out here through coups, proxy wars, and foreign interventions. The US and the Soviet Union both viewed it as a key battleground. The US went as far as to back South American coups, such as the 1973 overthrow of Chile's socialist leader, Salvador Allende. That coup, in particular, served as a warning to left-leaning leaders across the continent. Amid the repression of military dictatorships in South America, artists, writers, and musicians used their platforms to critique inequality, resist oppression, and celebrate cultural identity. This period saw a surge in politically engaged art and literature, despite government censorship and persecution. In Chile, poet Pablo Neruda, a Nobel Prize winner, used his poetry to denounce authoritarianism and advocate for social justice. In Argentina, folk singer Mercedes Sosa became a leading voice of the Nueva Canción, New Song movement, which blended traditional music with protest themes. Oswaldo Guayasamín of Ecuador created powerful paintings that depicted the suffering of indigenous peoples and victims of state violence. The 1990s, a shift toward democracy. The end of the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and global trends toward democratization signaled a turning point for the continent. Many countries transitioned from a dictatorship to a democracy, although the road to a new style of government was riddled with challenges. Countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Chile held free elections, bringing civilian governments to power. Truth commissions investigated past human rights abuses, helping nations reckon with their histories. This new era also included globalization and economic liberalization in South America. The adoption of free market policies attracted foreign investment and boosted the economy. However, globalization of the economy brought mixed results. While it opened markets and opportunities, it also exposed economies to vulnerabilities and external shocks due to a reliance on foreign capital. Regional organizations, like the South Common Market, also called Mercosur, are political and economic unions of South American countries established to strengthen economic ties and promote political cooperation. These efforts symbolized a shared unity and a commitment to a shared future. The 2000s, pink tide and progressive movements. The 21st century began with a wave of left-leaning governments, often called the pink tide. This era was so named because red was historically the color of socialism and the working class. Propelled by mass movements of the working class and rural poor, these leaders championed social justice and sought to address past inequalities. Notable leaders in this era included Hugo Chavez of Venezuela and Evo Morales of Bolivia. Hugo Chavez was a Venezuelan politician who was president from 1999 to 2013 and launched ambitious social programs funded by oil wealth. Central to his presidency was the Bolivarian Revolution, a political movement that emphasized nationalism, a state-controlled economy, and military strength, while also promoting socialist policies across Latin America. Chavez spent generously on his social programs, including literacy and healthcare initiatives. While these policies initially reduced poverty and helped his people, economic mismanagement later led to more crises. Evo Morales in Bolivia became the country's first indigenous president in 2006, symbolizing a shift toward greater recognition of indigenous rights. As president, he pledged to reduce poverty among Bolivia's indigenous people, fight government corruption, and increase taxes on the wealthy. He even tried to rewrite the Bolivian constitution to improve indigenous rights and cement his policies of nationalization and land distribution. Though his movements to rewrite the constitution did not pass, he did succeed in signing a land reform bill that would take unused and unproductive lands from absentee owners and redistribute it to people experiencing poverty. Although the wealthier provinces of Bolivia all rightfully opposed him, his presidency continued. Eventually, his proposal to rewrite a new constitution was approved by voters. He ended up holding his office as president for 3 terms. After a conflict-filled 4th election, Morales won again, but after reports of irregularity in the voting results and outrage from those opposing him, he was asked to resign. Although the end of his reign was somewhat turbulent, His presidency saw great change for his country and South America as a whole. This era also saw social progress outside of these prominent leaders. Many countries made strides in gender equality, environmental protection, and human rights. The 2010s. Challenges and opportunities. South America faced significant challenges as the decade unfolded and demonstrated remarkable resilience. Some of its great obstacles in the 2010s included economic struggles, social unrest, and environmental concerns. Declining commodity prices hurt resource-dependent economies like Venezuela and Brazil. Venezuela's economic collapse led to widespread shortages, mass immigration, and political instability. Protests erupted across the continent, with citizens demanding reforms. In Chile, demonstrations over inequality led to a historic referendum to rewrite the constitution. In Colombia, protests highlighted frustrations over government corruption and violence. Finally, the Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the planet because of the amounts of oxygen it releases, became a focal point of global environmental debates. Deforestation, driven by agriculture and logging, threatened biodiversity and indigenous communities. While growth in cities benefits South America's economy, it often harms the environment. Trees were harvested for the timber industry, while the plains and rainforests were turned into ranches, farms, and towns. The new development was increasing the amount of air and water pollution in the Amazon basin and elsewhere. Since the Amazon rainforest is the world's most diverse biological reservoir, its well-being attracted and continues to attract global attention. It houses at least 10% of the world's species, including plants, and it would be a tragedy to lose such an essential ecosystem to urbanization. The 2020s. Resilience amidst crisis. In this decade, the 2020 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to every continent, including South America. Health systems were overwhelmed, economies contracted, and millions faced uncertainty. Chile's efficient vaccination campaign stood out as a model of success, but other nations struggled with vaccine distribution, exacerbating inequalities between countries. For example, Brazil was one of the hardest-hit countries during the pandemic, with devastating mortality rates and a slow vaccine rollout. Despite setbacks, South America's resilience shines through. Grassroots movements, technological advancements, and a renewed focus on sustainability signal a brighter future for the continent. It is home to some of the most urbanized developing countries. Many of its countries are experiencing economic growth, and many now operate as democracies. It will likely battle with climate change, the consequences of urbanization and industrialization, and economic recovery from the pandemic. But there are plenty of things to celebrate in South America's future. The continent is plentiful in natural resources, its unemployment and poverty rates are declining, and the near future looks bright. Although there are still things South America will need to overcome, and its progress will take time, it is on the road to a prosperous future. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about South America's fascinating history, check out our book, The Americas, a captivating guide to the history of the continents of North and South America, starting from the Olmecs through the Maya and Aztecs to European colonization and independence movements. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.